Up next, what we have is a very special interview for you. Staying on the theme of our sister site, crn.com, we have an interview with the CEO of Cisco, John Chambers.
Chad Berndtson here, editor-at-large with CRN, and I'm joined by Cisco Chairman and CEO John Chambers. Great to see you.
Chad, it's a pleasure to be with you all again.
Appreciate the time. John, we talk with Cisco partners all the time, particularly the gold and silver partners who represent some very important pieces of the market for you out in the field.
Probably 70% of our total partner volume.
Certainly, certainly. What's been mentioned, what's been observed throughout Cisco's history, especially in your time as CEO, is that you've met market transitions, you've come out on top. Cisco has remained a very important competitor when a lot of companies have fallen by the wayside, have missed transitions. Partners continue to invest in Cisco, even with the air pockets you've hit over the last couple of years, and certainly some of the challenges you faced during the company restructuring. What's in store for them? What's your message to them going forward?
Well, I think the message is, as a company, we've been pretty good about knowing when to stay the course, knowing when to adjust, and knowing when to reinvent. And actually, all three of those go on at the same time. I thank you for the kind comments, because many people don't realize every transition that has occurred, either a positive transition, the role of networking changing, data center changing in terms of IP, telephony, etc., we've come out of it stronger. And every negative transition, such as the economy or a new technology like cloud or software in a data center that has come, we've always out-executed our peers on it and emerged even stronger. So I think the first thing we bring to our customers is not just our customers and our partners, is not just predictability, it's successful predictability. The second thing we bring in terms of what could be next is the excitement around the Internet of Everything. Only 0.2% of the devices that can be connected are at the present time. That's going to have huge implications, doesn't matter which industry you're in, from healthcare to manufacturing to the environment to our home, etc. So our commitment is we are a partner-driven company, period. We're going to continue to be partner-driven, and our goal is to get the market transitions right, because that's where innovation occurs. When you hear from your customers and partners, market transitions, that center spot is where innovation occurs.
Gotcha, gotcha. John, Cisco has some very important ecosystem partners, some strategic allies, EMC and VMware being very good examples, but we've also seen of late certainly moves made by Cisco, moves made by EMC, and VMware's acquisition of Nicira, suggesting that there's as much potential competition there as there is alliance. But I understand Cisco thinks about these competitors and partners just that way, as both partners here and competitors there. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, let me share it the same way Rob Lloyd did with our field. At our sales meeting here about a month ago, Rob says everybody likes one car that's colored the same, and that's gray. There isn't going to be a gray in this industry. Networking is at the center of every market transition going on, from BYOD to the PC to the tablets to the smartphones to software and data centers to mobility to video everywhere. We're at the centerpiece in terms of what that really means in terms of the market and how it's going to occur. So what it means really to our partners and customers is we're going to continue to leverage this transition and to be able to compete both against competitors and new challenges. We're going to be able to say we're going to compete against Microsoft in collaboration, do the best we can to beat them. I like our odds here, but they're a very important partner to us strategically in the data center and in terms of what might occur with hypervisors in this open stack. With EMC, they are our best partner. With Nicira, it does put pressure on the relationship as it relates to VMware. So we're going to partner with EMC, and we're going to compete against Nicira in terms of VMware's implementation of that. You'll see us expand our relationships with the Citrix of the world, the NetApps of the world, the Red Hats of the world, maybe even the IBM of the world. And it does speak to almost every player in the industry views Cisco as an important partner in achieving their goals. That obviously translates to our partners. It means if we do our job right, we're going to keep you in the sweet spot of where these market transitions occur. If you haven't got new changes or new competitors coming at you, you probably are in the wrong spot.
No question. Nicira was a software-defined networking company. Just to stay on that a little bit, is a software-defined networking company. It's been discussed about how SDN and its ability to potentially commoditize switching and routing is a threat to Cisco, but you don't see it that way.
Well, I think I've been in this role for over 20 years. Every year there's a new competitor. What was it when we were together 15 months ago? It was what HP and Juniper and Avaya and Huawei were going to be able to do to us, and how we were in trouble. And you fast forward 15, 18 months later, we're beating them all. And with Juniper, we completely pulled away from them, and they're really struggling, including moving too late in terms of bringing their expenses in line with their revenue goals. You look at Avaya, we've completely outmaneuvered them in terms of the overall architecture. You look at HP, said we were going to be out of the server arena in 12 months. Well, we have 22% market share in North America, grew 58% last quarter. And we're getting good at competing against Huawei, understanding about innovation that puts the customers. When we give pricing, that's the pricing we run with. They tend to get their wins, and then the price goes up every year after that. The ability to really bring added value. Trust goes a long way in terms of the approach. So we've learned how to compete. To your question about software-defined networks, on that, I personally believe it's going to be ASIC software and hardware. And what we've always done, we're a software company. But when you develop ASICs fast or faster than merchant silicon, you combine that software uniquely with the ASICs with the hardware, and that's how we got our market share in the data center around cloud. You'll see us move on multiple fronts. You'll see us both compete on how quickly ASICs come to market, and watch what we most recently did versus a small company like Arista that had an advantage in low latency, but just for a short term. Then all of a sudden we come in with a new product that is below 200 nanoseconds capability, and their merchant ASICs, whenever it comes out sometime next year, maybe around summer, it's going to be at 350. That's a complete breakaway from them. And so our ability to do the and is so key. You're going to see us do this on high-end ASICs. You're going to see us do it on mid-level ASICs. And you'll see us use merchant when appropriate for time to market.
Okay, John, a final question.
Sure.
UBM TechWeb polls as Cisco customers, CIOs, purchasers of Cisco technology, those who are your evangelists, who are some of your longtime customers, some who are more recent customers. And
you're about to ask a tough question here. Go ahead.
About the,
I can tell by the way you're setting it up.
Setting it up.
Okay.
So what came out in terms of criticism of Cisco uniformly is still pricing. That's been something that's come up over the years. Cisco too expensive, Cisco too much of an investment, especially now with SDN and other trends changing the networking conversation a little bit. How do you respond to that?
Well, first is if you watch what we've done, we listen to criticism. We're coming down Moore's Law faster than we ever have done. That's doubling the price performance every 18 months. As long as we do that, our customers stay with us. And same thing's true with partners. In fact, we actually came down it very fast with switching about a year and a half ago, which we saw some of the implications of. In terms of our ability to continue to move pricing down, we absolutely will. Our price performance will increase dramatically as we move forward. But what we're seeing is for us and our partners, we've got to learn to sell architectures and value add. So if you're selling a standalone product versus a standalone competitor, you still should win, but the pricing margins on that are going to be smaller for both of us. If you're selling an architecture with your services and a little bit of ours, your win rate goes up dramatically, your margins go up dramatically, et cetera, within it. What I thought you were going to ask is ease of doing business with our partners and our customers. And what shocked me this last year, in the enterprise customers, we moved from not a very good number to number one. Now, we've got a long way to go there, and this is a lot of what Gary Moore and team is doing around operational excellence. But Randy Pond and Joe Pinto led that effort for us, dramatic improvement in terms of ease of doing business. But we've got a ways to go even further.
Okay. John Chambers, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure as always.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow, some terrifically hard-hitting questions from Chad Berndtson, who's an editor with CRN, just like Steve Burke, who you saw earlier. And Chad right now is with us over Skype. Chad, are you here?
Yes, sir. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks very much for joining us. Boy, you know, he's a master of language. He's always on message when it comes to talking about Cisco, and he very clearly understands at great depth the full portfolio and all of their advantages. He used words like outmaneuvered, out-executed. He talked about how Cisco was able to, during the hard times, outmaneuver and out-execute his competition in a way that kept it ahead of everybody else. But at the end there, you hit him with the pricing question, which is clearly a part of execution. You looked at the research that we did here at UBM TechWeb that found that maybe their prices were too high. Any feedback on that? Have you turned around and looked at that to see whether or not what he had to say was actually true and that what they're doing is resonating in the marketplace, or are the prices still kind of too pricey for a lot of people?
Well, Cisco's been hit on pricing forever. I mean, that's it seems like that's been the criticism of them since since time immemorial, or at least in the case of you have competitors coming in with much lower price offerings. You saw him right there on the tape. I mean, he answered it without directly answering it, saying that as he has in the past, that Cisco's value is now it all comes together from an architectural standpoint. Whether as other vendors, especially some of Cisco's more important competitors, are able to drive that architectural conversation, as they're able to do that more often and do it more cheaply than Cisco, maybe that won't be as good enough an answer anymore. But for the moment, Chambers knows as well as anyone he has the enormous Cisco installed base to fall back on. In many cases, what he must be saying to a lot of these customers is, it's just easier to buy from us and put it all together, and because of that convenience, you don't mind paying a little bit more.
It sounded a little bit like he was saying that software-defined networking, SDN, is really not all software, that there's a hardware play there, and that's where one of Cisco's big advantages is. Is that the case, or are other companies in that same space?
I think some of that is gamesmanship on the part of Cisco. They obviously fear the software-defined networking trend. They fear the potential of more programmable software virtualization influenced networks to disrupt the bread and butter networking businesses that they still rely on for so much of their revenue. I think some of that is it might be just stalling or posturing until they're able to figure out what their value is going to be there themselves. Chambers himself mentioned during our interview and plenty of our recent coverage, as well as yours, what they're looking to do with Insemi, the company in which Cisco has invested some $100 million and looks to be another spin-in designed to position them in terms of the virtualized network and the programmable software-defined network, much like many of those so-called SDN competitors are doing now. So talking a good game about the continued relevance of Cisco while behind the scenes building their horse.
I want to stay on this theme of competitive pressures on Cisco, and I think he's done a good job of steering this conversation over the years. Every single threat that comes Cisco's way, they've managed to name. He's very humble about it. He says, we've got these competitors. He names names. Most recently, he just talks about merchant silicon players in general, and I think that kind of harkens to this software-defined network theme as well. But despite that humbleness, they've always said, or he's always said, we think we sit in a pretty good position. And by and large, they have. Is this particular threat, the merchant silicon, the software-defined networks, is this really more competition than he's ever faced?
Hard to say. I think, he would be the first to redirect that question, I would imagine, and go back over the years to how Cisco beat its competitors from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. He'd be happy to talk at some great length about how much better Cisco is doing now compared to, say, HP or Juniper, or how they've just outmaneuvered, to use that favorite word again, how they've outmaneuvered Arista in the low latency switching market. So whether they do face competition in their very complex, very expensive ASICs from the merchant silicon type vendors, there's no one that comes to mind that is beating their pants off at the moment. This may be something we have to revisit in a few years if they do. I think what you're hearing a lot from Chambers is we have the track record, we're going to be just fine. They are clearly worried about how some of these things are going to reshape the networking business as we know it and the data center business as we know it, but at the same time, you got to give Chambers that. Cisco does have the track record.
Now, Chambers and Cisco took a few risks over the last few years on the consumer end of things, not just with on the wireless side, but also video, and they started coming out with these video-based products, the living room systems, I think Yumi or something like that, and then they bought that video camera company as well, and they kind of backed off. They got rid of all that stuff, and Chambers himself was embattled during that time. I mean, he faced a lot of questions about whether he should step down, a lot of questions about succession plans and things like that. Do you think that he's come out the other end of this completely now? Is he sitting in a good position? Have those moves to shut down those businesses worked out as planned?
I think Cisco did have to swallow some bitter pills. I mean, you mentioned the Yumi personal telepresence that no one wanted to pay for. You mentioned the out-and-out debacle that was Flip, and you combine those things with other recent Cisco misfires, like, for example, the Cius tablet. I mean, you've got a pretty nice little island of misfit toys there. I mean, Cisco doesn't know that endpoint game. They don't know that consumer game so much. And I mean, you've heard Chambers be pretty visible and pretty audible on just how badly they botched things up there. I mean, he said even in our recent interview, do we go to what could we have done with Flip? And he answered me straight up and said we should have moved FlipShare into the cloud and put it on every smartphone. But to give credit where it's due, Cisco claims that its success and acquisition rate is 2 out of 3, which, if it is true, dramatically dwarfs the industry average. So I think it seems like they've been pretty contrite about what those failures have been. They obviously needed some good PR, as Chambers was essentially fighting to keep his job last year, and the refocusing of the whole refocusing effort on the core 5 priorities allowed them to say we choked on consumer without actually having to say that.
Well, Chad Berndtson, editor-at-large with CRN.com, thanks very much. It was a great interview, great hard-hitting questions. Appreciate you joining us here today on Information Week's Valley View.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Yep. And if you want to catch more of what Chad has to write about, you can go to CRN.com, or you can go get their application in the iTunes store.